So this video is about our embodied expressing posture, the posture at the emotional domain, the emotional feeling domain, and this posture we're calling being right with. Just before I go into it, I want to flag that these embodied postures that we're doing are where they come from. They correlate to kind of an internal posture or an internal attitude towards how we relate with others, and then we're laying it with an embodied expression that allows it to kind of map into our nervous system and map into kind of our body, so we have reference points for what it feels like to express and to listen, to relate in these ways with this kind of internal attitude. So this posture is being right with. So being right with is, it's an expressing posture. So I'm expressing myself into the world, and the being right with part is kind of like coming into a sense of okayness and a sense of rightness about what my experience is. So I'm actually self-validating my experience, my emotional and my felt experience, as I'm sharing it into the world, whatever it is. And the more I can kind of enter into this space of what I'm feeling is right and is okay, the more I'm able to actually start showing up in my life as I am. You know, if I'm not okay with my experience, I'm going to want to hide that in some way. I'm going to want to not show that. And as a result, my expression in the world is going to be muted or stifled or suppressed in some way. And my experience then is going to be impacted by that. And I may not have the kind of relating and relationships and depth of intimacy that I want. I might not have the desires met that I want. I'm not going to be fully showing up, and I'm going to feel like me being in the world isn't really here. I'm going to feel a bit of distance, a bit of distance from the world.
Yeah, like something I think about as part of this is that, we're a stimulus. Like there's an experience that arises that we don't actually have control over, right? There's like all of the history that we have, and then there's the external stimulus that's kind of meeting that history in a sense, and then based on our kind of the patterning of who we are, then a particular experience is going to arise. Now, there is a point at which we do have like choice over our response, right? But that I'm going to have the most powerful place of choice if I actually fully accept what actually is. If I'm having a particular emotional experience, there might be layers in there which have me like want to deny that experience. And it's the level that is like most kind of alive in my awareness. If I can welcome that level, I can be right with that part of my experience, then I'm going to have space around that experience, and then I'm going to be able to respond to it. And there might be like lots of layers in there. There's these kind of secondary emotions, built into the patterning of who we are. But it's kind of almost like the layer that is like at the top, the layer that is actually alive for us. And that could actually also include, that we're feeling kind of resistant, or we're feeling like unable to actually welcome our experience. And this is where it's kind of paradoxical, because can I actually welcome that? Can I welcome this part of me that is like kind of tight and not able to like fully welcome what's actually going on in me, that I'm anxious? And can I actually still be right with that, and actually then from that place have a sense of like standing on the ground of what is, and then standing on that ground, then actually have choice about how I hold myself, how I respond to myself, and from there how I actually bring myself, my expression into the world.
And I think about like if I'm having an experience, say sadness, I'm feeling sad about something that's occurred in my life, and I'm out in the world and I'm interacting with people in some way. Maybe it's at a work, I'm at work, or I'm at a party, or I'm socializing, and I have this experience of sadness, but I'm not okay with it, and I don't want to be seen in it. So I'm like pushing it down. There'll be a way that like part of me won't actually be interacting in the experience. I'll feel a bit separate, and the people around me, whether they're conscious or unconscious of it, will be feeling that too. They'll feel that there's something I'm not sharing, there's something that I'm separate, and there will be a response. Then maybe they'll feel tiptoeing around me, they don't quite know what to say to me, or something like that, and I'll be like nodding and smiling, how are you today? I'm fine, thanks. But actually inside I'm like I'm not okay, but I don't want to be seen in that. And as a result, I keep myself separate. And this to me breeds a lot of loneliness. If I do that, I'm going to feel quite alone in the world. I'm going to feel lonely. I'm going to feel unheard. I'm going to feel unmet. I'm going to feel unseen. And I may have the sense of like waiting for people to come towards me, but because I'm like kind of hiding it, other people won't necessarily want to come towards me because they don't know how to relate with me in that way. So it kind of like sets off this cascade of keeping me separate from the world when I actually want to be in it.
Yeah, totally. And to me, there's like this, as I like learn how to be right with the kind of the presenting layer of my experience, and then I can actually like express it. I can whatever it is. If I'm feeling sad, I might kind of take myself away and just be with myself, or maybe I'll say that to somebody. I'm feeling sad, and can you just like be with me in that, or whatever it might be, and then as I like for these kind of experiences that have these layers, then the layers tend to kind of melt away in a sense, and it's to me there's this process of you know, learning to be okay that we have emotions and that we have imperfections and that we feel things, and then as we kind of can welcome that and be with it, then we can actually make it okay for us to have like the needs associated with those things and the desires around them, and actually then express those things into the world. And there's been this journey for me of like in the practice of like revealing my vulnerabilities, my imperfections, and and to start with it being kind of like I can't say that. I could never actually share that I'm feeling that way. I'll be rejected and judged for it, and then as I've experimented with that, every now and again I am rejected and it hurts, but more often than not, actually I get a lot of like compassion, and people actually feel closer to me because I'm revealing this kind of these touching, beautiful parts of me, and it's actually this process of being able to hold ourselves, and then moderate our expression through holding ourselves, that gradually we make it okay that we feel these things, and that we can then express these things, and to me then the kind of process of like doing this is like removes these layers kind of one by one until we kind of start to really get to the primary emotions, which the primary emotions where the expression of what we're feeling and then the needs and desires around that are going to be kind of most pure, and most kind of responsive. We're going to be respond kind of most appropriately to ourselves and our environment.
There's a particular potency that emerges. This posture really steps into owning our experience, owning my experience. So if I can be right with my experience, then I can own it. And when I own my experience, that's powerful. That's incredibly. That's when the world will actually respond to me. If I don't own my experience, the world, like if I don't own that I'm feeling sad, you won't know to respond to me in that sense.
Yeah, totally.
So there's this sets up that potential for intimacy. It's vulnerable to reveal my experience, and intimacy doesn't happen without vulnerability. So unless I'm willing to venture my vulnerability into the world, then I'm actually not capable of actually having intimacy in the world, with
Yes.
others in the world.
Nice.
And so embedded in this posture is also our containment boundary. So whenever we're expressing with a containment boundary. And that containment boundary is this self-holding. It's this, I'm right with my experience. So I may share, I'm feeling like shy, I'm feeling insecure being on the camera, but I'm contained in that. Like I'm not needing you to do anything about that. You don't have to change yourself in response to that. And that's what allows this kind of space for us to come closer together, because I'm not kind of like sharing in a manipulative way where I'm actually trying to fish for some kind of response for you in my sharing. I'm actually contained in it. I'm contained in my expression and I'm expressing it. So I'm vulnerable, but I'm also held by myself.
Yeah. And that's, to me, a super important point, because if I have these kind of hidden kind of expectations in why I'm sharing, people are going to feel that, and normally it's going to be a bit like, oh, like you're wanting something from me, but I don't really understand it.
You're not telling me.
Yeah. And being able to like, to me, a lot of this is about I'm in relationship with myself, and by being in relationship with myself, I'm really aware that I'm having a particular experience, and by having that kind of awareness of having an experience, I can see it and I can have space around it, and by having space around it, then I can actually share what's kind of I can share with space, essentially. I can actually like almost like hold it up and say, like, I'm having this experience, and I don't, it's an experience that I might even necessarily fully understand, but I can say that too, you know. I was like, I feel confused about it, and I'm not quite sure what's actually going on, but I know that I feel a bit kind of, you know, like hurt or something like that, you know. And it's kind of by having space around our experience through this kind of process of being in relationship with ourselves, then my expression is clean, essentially.
Let's get into the posture. This is a kind of like come down a little bit. I'm a bit tall. So this is an expressing posture. So we're actually forwards in this posture. Just going to lift this up a little bit, guys. So we're actually coming forwards. The weight is on the front leg, or the weight is forwards. Yeah. So there's a forwardsness. I'm coming into the world, and from that forwardness, there's also a lifting. The spine turns into more of a convex it's actually through the lifting of the heart, the kind of opening of the heart into the world, the expressing of the heart that allows my expression to come out. So there's a sense of like forward, and I'm letting myself up into the world. And then the hands come out in front of me. I'm holding. So my palms are facing towards me. So I'm actually focused on my expression as I'm moving it out into the world. I'm with me, but I'm revealing me. I'm sharing myself into the world. And I'm right with it. I have a sense of, like I'm right with my expression in this moment, and I'm sharing it. I'm sharing it to the world. And we have our dimensions of proximity. So maybe I want to actually just like, I want to make my feeling a little, I want to share, but I'm maybe a little bit timid. I only want to share a little bit of it, you know, or and then I might have more distance, and noticing the places where, like, maybe if I overextend and I actually come off balance, well, I'm like extended too far and I start to come a little bit balanced. Like you could play with this, and you feel, what does it feel like to share, to have my emotions too far out and feeling off balance by them. So there's a sense of like, oh, I need to keep in a sense of groundedness. Or if I'm too far back and I'm kind of like shrinking inside of them. So the sense of like, where's the kind of space that I have for myself here? And then we have our dimension of openness. So I may want to like, oh, I'm revealing my heart to you. You know, I'm revealing what's going on inside of me. You know, or maybe I want to actually like I'm expressed, but I'm actually like keeping myself, you know, quite solidly contained, and not a lot of it's coming out. And then we also have the dimension of our permeability. So I may want to like actually reveal some. I've got a bit of space, but there's like, I can feel that I'm charged. You know, maybe I'm triggered about something, and I can feel that I might actually be a little bit emotionally hooky or manipulative. So I'm actually taking that out. I'm noticing, like, you know, and the speech act that might go with this would be something like, oh, I'm feeling angry right now, and I notice that I'm trying to control you, so I'm actually want to stop doing that, you know, through my anger. So this is this sense of like, I'm filtering all the kind of emotional, hooky, charged stuff out of it, or maybe I actually want to let, you know, quiet a little bit of it out, because, you know, there's something important in there to reveal myself. Sense of like, just I'm right with my feelings. I'm right with what I'm experiencing. And I may want to experiment also with how much I want to kind of lean in, how much I want to lift up into it.
Yeah, I might even take my back foot slightly off the ground, so only like my toes and the kind of front of my foot's on the ground, and that adds like a different dynamism of expression.
Yeah.
And I'm like actually kind of, my expression's louder in a sense.
Yeah.
There's a few pieces that I want to add here too. One is, this is also like about how we're holding ourselves. You know, so how, based on what you're feeling, how tightly do you feel like you need to hold yourself? You know, like, you know, I think of this as like, you know, we've got this kind of little innocent part of us in the side. It's almost like a baby, you know, and babies, to feel safe, you know, we swaddle our babies, you know, so that, you know, depending on kind of the largeness of our emotion experience, there might be like a certain level of like, I'm touching my experience and holding it, you know, and kind of just like having myself feel safe by how tightly I'm kind of holding my experience, and feeling into that. Now, of course, I could overdo that, and I could like start kind of suffocating my experience, and this is basically a form of repression. So we want to be careful that our containment isn't actually repressing our emotions and our experience, and we're having to like hold it too tight to force it in. I've certainly done a lot of this where I'm like so scared of some of my emotions impacting people that I'm like actually holding them too tight, and I'm not actually able to express them, and then consequently express my needs around those emotions, right? And I think that's really important. And then to me, there's this kind of element of like the largeness of our emotion, and how much largeness do we want to actually bring kind of out into the world. I want to actually have my emotion quite large, and I'm going to hold like a large space for that emotion. And I might still want to like have kind of a sense of like privacy around expressing that, but I'm still actually going to let myself have this large emotion. And to me, this dimension of like kind of like revealing and privacy in a sense is kind of a polarity I think is really important. And privacy is important. It's important to have a sense of privacy around experience. Some of it is just ours, and some of that might be for containment reasons. I don't want to share all the shit that's going on the side. Some of it might be just because it feels too vulnerable, and it feels safer for me to have privacy.
And an example of like being quite contained and private may be like, I'm still going to express and be in the world with my feeling, but I may come out and be something like, hey, I'm actually feeling really vulnerable and raw today. And there's a lot going on for me, and I don't actually want a lot of attention on it, but I'm here. I want to keep that to myself because I'm kind of working on it and I'm trying to make sense of it, and I don't really want attention on it yet. So I've got myself contained, but I still want to be in connection with you.
I think with our emotions generally, there's this kind of, we don't want to overexpress, and we don't want to like suppress or repress. And instead, we want to kind of have this sweet spot in between where I'm holding my emotion, I'm holding it with enough kind of place for it to express appropriately, for it to be kind of held, to not be repressed, to have kind of choice around how I'm actually modulating that expression.
Nice. Being right with.